Does Bitcoin die if we don't spend it? Jeff Booth and even Jack Dorsey have been claiming that the Bitcoin project has failed as a store of value if we don't use it as a medium of exchange. Are they right, or are they missing something? Let's dive into it. So recently in the media, we've kind of seen two opposing sides who were, or so we thought, on the same team. We have Team Michael Saylor, President Donald Trump, with this mantra of, you don't sell your Bitcoin.
Never sell your Bitcoin, right?
Bitcoin is like digital real estate, and why on earth would you use your digital real estate to buy things like a cup of coffee or enhance your lifestyle? On the other side, you've got, what I would call Bitcoin maxis or maybe OGs saying, hey, Bitcoin will fail if we don't end up using it for things like a cup of coffee. What's the point of money if you can't use it? And it's kind of sparked this interesting debate, or at least I found it very interesting, and this battle between this, what I would call number go up maxis and like true, authentic Bitcoin maxis. So as we go through both these topics today, I want you to keep an open mind and try to figure out, which side do you fall on? Do you think you should never sell your Bitcoin and only buy it, only hold it, only hoard it? Or is Bitcoin more like a reflection of time? Is Bitcoin something that you want to keep into the future, but also something that you have to use to fund your lifestyle?
So let's fast forward to the future, and Bitcoin has failed. How did it fail?
I think it fails through irrelevance. Like it fails to be relevant to people on a daily basis. If it just ends up being store of value and nothing more, I don't think it gains relevance at all.
I actually don't think that Bitcoin will ever be store of value and nothing more, because I don't think it can be a store of value without having relevance to 8 billion people. Obviously, when you hear the camp of number go up, don't sell your Bitcoin, you're looking at really billionaires that probably don't need Bitcoin in their life. They've made a killing. They've made generational wealth in spite of, or maybe even in partnership with, a fiat system. And I think that the fiat system, as we know it, is exploding. Those people are trying to find ways to preserve what they've already made. But if you think about the mass population of the world, they need to create and preserve the value that they haven't even made yet. They need to go into the future thinking about ways to create value, sell that value for something valuable, and then keep that value. And I really think that for the majority of people, Bitcoin cannot be that store of value if they have no way to spend it, or if there's censorship and barriers in between spending or using that Bitcoin and obtaining that Bitcoin.
I think it has to be payments for it to be relevant on the everyday. Otherwise, it's just something you kind of buy and forget and only use in emergency situations or when you want to get liquid again.
If this is, honestly, from my perspective, if this is the worst case scenario for Bitcoin, I think we're in really good shape. However, I do think that Satoshi and in turn me wants more from the promise of a Bitcoin standard. Bitcoin needs to erase the need for complex money systems. If Bitcoin becomes something that you just store, maybe you've got some UTXO management once or twice a year and you're just DCAing, that's failure. That's not very exciting to me. I love the concept of having our savings and our spendings mashed into one system, one ecosystem where everything gets simpler. You create value, you spend, you consume less than the value that you create, and you are rewarded in the future. I love this point by Jack that if all we do is buy it and forget about it, it is not exciting. The world is not changed to its maximum potential.
So I think if it doesn't transition to payments and find that everyday use case, it just gets increasingly irrelevant. And that's failure to me.
So just off the top here, I think it's a little bit hypocritical of the guy that owns one of the largest payments company in the world saying Bitcoin is a failure if it doesn't see payments. I don't know why Square, or now Block, is not pushing the Bitcoin payment stream forward with the head Block, or the Block head, literally having these thoughts and feelings. I agree with these thoughts and feelings full outright. I want to see, or I'd love to see Jack doing more in this. And so here's something, maybe we love the art and maybe call out the artist. I agree fully. And I think recently, Square's Block's making some transitions, but at the end of the day, that would be my call out. My comment down below before we dive into some of the comments is going to be, yo, Jack, what are you doing, man? Let's get mass payments. Turn all those terminals. How many millions of terminals do you have in the wild? Make it easy. Turn on Bitcoin payments. Have it be something that many people want to do. Now, his response was, yeah, we did that and no one did it. No one wanted to. And obviously this is think about Bill Gates's first comment about the computer. Maybe, 8 or 9% of people will ever have a computer, right? Think about, and then who was the BlackBerry CEO or RIM at the time? No one wants a glass phone. Everybody loves their buttons. Technology and mass adoption takes time. But if we don't have these strong, capital infused entrepreneurs building it, it will never get good. I can think of at least one way to incentivize. Right now, Block, I'm almost certain, charges 2, 3, or 4% credit card processing fees. Charge 0, charge 1 for Bitcoin payments. Make it an actual incentive. Build amazing infrastructure. Give an incentive to merchants to flip the button and turn it on. I do not see, if you truly believe in the importance and the future of Bitcoin payments and of the Bitcoin project as succeeding through payments, I do not see clutter being a reason not to turn it on. It was never going to be used for everyday payments. Is gold irrelevant because of store value? Or is it putting in all-time highs every single day? I hate these gold bugs coming in, telling me that gold is a success because it's seeing all-time highs in 2024. In 2025. If your store of value wasn't seeing success during massive times of failure, it would be dead. We are seeing every single asset on planet Earth see all-time highs. Not because it's a success, only because the money that we are measuring against is decreasing in value by design. I would say gold is largely irrelevant because it has failed as a payments tool. Now, does that mean you can't make money? No. Does that mean it's useless? No. I would say largely irrelevant. Even gold as a safety asset is being questioned. I do not think gold has millennia staying power. In fact, if I had to pick one asset to pass through my bloodline for a millennia, I don't think shiny yellow metal has the test of time as we move into the digital age.
Does it ever have to be a currency, or do you think it ever becomes a quote-unquote currency?
It doesn't have to be a currency. Nobody's trying to buy a cup of coffee with a fraction of their building on Fifth Avenue.
Listen, I'm going to stop Michael here, right there. It's because nobody can. That's why buildings make such poor stores of value, because they are not capable of being divided with ease.
Right. But every rich person I know owns property in London or New York City or somewhere. And none of them complain about not being able to spend their building to as a medium of exchange. So,
see, I think that this is just going back to a fiat mindset where we need buildings as stores of value because the currency sucks. There is no reason to put long-term wealth and hoard buildings if the money we had was good. This is back to the original point of the whole point. The reason we need stores of value is because the thing that we use to exchange sucks. And so if we flip that script and if we were actually able to provide value, give it to somebody else, and in return get currency that was good, that had the test of time behind it and in front of it, we wouldn't need to play these fiat games to try to invest in things that we don't really necessarily want or need, to try to become a quasi-fiat analyst and looking at tea leaves and charts, trying to guess if the S&P will have a good week or a bad week. All of this is designed to confuse you. It is designed to rip your value away and give it to the elite.
The killer application is capital preservation for everybody. The store of value is the killer use case. Medium of exchange is a distraction.
Whoa.
Governments are always going to issue currency. They're always going to make it legal tender, and that's just fine. Bitcoin's competing with gold. It's going to eat it, and then it's competing with risk assets as a long-term hold, and it's competing with you buying an Airbnb as a retirement income source. if you're a middle-class person.
See, I don't know. I think we're seeing true colors. Slay your heroes, class of 2024, because I don't think that this is the Bitcoin ethos. I don't think Michael Saylor cares about your freedom. In fact, I know he doesn't because he gives his coins to Brian Armstrong. All the coins that he promises you are in MSTR reserves are not owned or controlled by him and his company. They're owned and controlled by somebody else. And we can go down the conspiracy, the CIA, all this stuff. But none of that withstanding, we can see what people care about by hearing their takes here. Again, my perspective, different from Michael Saylor's. He doesn't need freedom. He doesn't care about the freedom that the Bitcoin protocol promises us. But we have a pseudo-anonymous creator of Bitcoin that solved the anonymous double spend problem and gave you and I the ability to preserve our wealth and keep control of it. Wealth preservation is a fiat game. This is something that's been around for centuries. We didn't need Bitcoin just to solve wealth preservation. In fact, we have entrepreneurs and very smart people working hard to preserve wealth for other people. But I think that when we move higher than preservation of value, when you want to look at an objective reason, why is Bitcoin better than gold? Why is Bitcoin better than real estate? What is going to stand the test of time? It's not going to be buildings. It's not going to be paintings. It's not going to be shiny yellow metal. It's going to be digitally scarce things that remove the need for me to work harder just to preserve it. Google Trojan horse. So Aditya probably agreeing more with me in his comment here. Google what is Trojan horse. Be smart and convince them it does not compete with the dollar. Saylor is a smart man. Best way to orange pill. It will become a currency, but you don't have to keep shouting about it. So this man's saying, look, Saylor agrees with us. He's on our side. He agrees that Bitcoin will be a currency one day, but he's willing to take the fall and make sure that the government's kind of all play nice. And sure, fair enough. If that's the case, I will take it. And I think Saylor would actually agree with these comments. But am I way off base? Do we think that Bitcoin doesn't need to be spent, that Bitcoin doesn't need to perform the second half of the usefulness of money in order to succeed? Or are we good with it just or only being, digital gold? If it's only digital real estate. Personally, that's less exciting. I love the idea of having uncensorable money.
But something I thought about years ago, if Bitcoin wasn't a medium of exchange, it would fail as a store of value. And not might fail as a store of value, would fail as a store of value, right? Gold has failed as a store of value largely.
I think you just heard someone else say that.
Medium of exchange. And by controlling the rails on top of the store of value, you can obfuscate, because most people don't count the gold. They're operating in a different layer. And then every time the gold gets centralized. And no matter what throughout history, it always gets reset or taken from you and reset throughout history.
I mean, sitting right behind me, we've got Executive Order 6102 proving Jeff Booth's point here, proving that when you centralize, absolute power corrupts absolutely. In a world where value is scarce, not money is scarce, but value is scarce. You and I create value with our time. That's scarce. Time is scarce. We do not have something that truly reflects the scarcity of our value. And so we're always fighting and trying to do more. When we give that value to somebody else, they're incentivized to steal. They are incentivized not to keep your value safe, but to try to leech off of that value. And I think that's what Jeff's getting at here, is that we absolutely need to see store of value coupled with medium of exchange. In the comments, we got our man, Joe Nakamoto, not to be confused with Satoshi, although he says, the only American Bitcoiners I know who use Bitcoin as money are ideologically driven. Guilty. Maybe Bitcoin as a medium of exchange has moved to places it helps solve a problem or where there are concentration of Bitcoiners. I think that's what will happen. I think that'll be how the natural, think about it. We have lots of scarce assets, granted, not that solve the proof of work problem, but we have lots of scarce assets that aren't valuable. We as humans are flawed when it comes to objectively seeking value. Bitcoin as a use of payment is only going to happen where someone who is ideologically driven, aka cares about freedom, will implement the store of value. We talked about Jack earlier, not do it because he thought that his fiat bags were preserved better if he didn't. Too much clutter on the Square app equals less fiat for Jack. We're seeing Saylor say, hey, Not needed. Don't worry about it. All we care about is real estate. We don't care about the coffee. And so, not happening. We need from the grassroots, ground up. That's how Bitcoin is going to survive and succeed as a form of value that is also a medium of exchange. True value will always flow to the most important thing. And I think what we're watching in real time right now is we're seeing people that are deeply passionate about Bitcoin as a payment system. People who are deeply passionate about that are going to start making this possible. Look at Vancouver, for example. Vancouver, Julian, Issa, and I, we spent a day in Vancouver only spending Bitcoin. Now, it wasn't perfect. This was, I think, almost 2 years ago at this point. It was not perfect by any means, but I'm confident that today it would be better. I think that if we lower our time preference and we zoom out across a quarter century, 50 years, there's no question in my mind that Bitcoin will be the superior form of payments. And so I just question, as a Bitcoiner myself, and you as a Bitcoiner yourself, how can we contribute to this dream? How can we contribute to this ethos of freedom, to this ethos of liberty? If we want, and if we agree that payments and money needs to be ungovernable, uncensorable, that you should have full outright control over how and what you spend money on, honestly, we need to do more for Bitcoin payments. But let me know. Am I being naive? Do you think that I am absolutely out to lunch and store of value is good enough? And as long as number goes up, we'll always have ways to transfer it into the dollar of the day and we can trade it then? Or is the bar higher for us as Bitcoiners who actually want to change the world? That's it for me. Make sure you let me know in the comments down below. Where do you fall? Where am I wrong? And how do we make the world a better place? And most importantly, stay sovereign.